In today's episode, we're creating some fun Christmas crafts using wooden spoons and mini charcuterie boards. I hope you enjoy. Sometimes you can find wooden spoons and turners in Dollar Tree, but I was in my local Dollar General and actually found these while they were having them on sale, buy one, get one half off. I always love to find a good sale. We're going to start off with one of the wooden spoons. I'm going to paint mine with one coat of an acrylic paint in the color Nutmeg on all sides. Once that dries, we're going to be using some white acrylic paint to paint the inside of the spoon. This will take 2 to 3 coats. I just want to make sure that I have some of that brown showing on all of the edges there. Then we're going to take one of Dollar Tree's microfiber cloths, cut that down maybe about 6 or 7 inches. We're going to flip that over to the side. You want to have enough to wrap your spoon, but you don't want it to be too bulky, so you may need to trim a little bit more off. Then we're going to take some hot glue and run that right across the edge, fold it up to create a faux seam. We're going to do that one more time because we want that seam to be pretty thick and fluffy. Then we can take our spoon, we're going to lay that underneath our cloth right there at the very top edge. We'll add a little bit of glue on each side. Then we're going to flip it over to the back side and glue one side down to the back of the spoon, making sure you keep it nice and tight. And again, you don't want it to be too bulky on the back, so you may need to trim a little bit more like I did. Then we're going to glue that side over. Once the glue sets, we're going to also be using a red and black plaid gift bag that I found at Dollar General. Now, if I had the fabric in this color, I would have preferred to use that, but since I didn't, I'm just going to use the fabric from this gift bag. I'm going to cut a piece of that and then rip it so I can have some of those frayed edges. I'll use this piece to tie around the top part of the hat that we're making for our snowman. This is going to make a cute little bow at the top. I decided to go back and trim a little bit more of that microfiber cloth at the top off so I could make cuts all across the top to create a pom-pom for his stocking. And I didn't want it to be too long and flop over, so it's kind of going to look like this. Now comes the really fun part. I'm going to use a pencil to draw out the face. In addition to the white acrylic paint, I'm also going to be using a black as well as a spiced pumpkin to fill in the eyes and the nose. Once that dries, I'll take the white paint to go back and give the eyes some highlights. And once the orange paint has dried, I will go back with a fine tip Sharpie marker to create some eyebrows, some lines underneath the eyes, as well as some eyelashes, create the mouth, and then give the nose an outline as well as some more detail. Once we finish this project, I will show you a picture at the end, but make sure you stay tuned to the next 2 projects because all of these are going to go together, and I can't wait for you guys to see how they all turned out. I'm going to use some more fabric from that gift bag just to tie around the handle to create him a scarf, and this is how he turned out. Using another wooden spoon as well as the nutmeg acrylic paint, we're going to paint this entire spoon with one coat, set it to the side, and let it dry. Then I'm going to take a pencil and go around to create the outline for our gingerbread man. Using some white acrylic paint and a fine detailed brush, I'm going to go over that outline that we just drew out, and it will take a couple of coats. Then I'm going to draw out the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And in addition to the white acrylic paint, I'm going to be using a black acrylic paint and a pink paint called Cameo Pink. I'm going to fill in the eyes with the black as well as the mouth, fill in the nose with the pink, and once that dries, I'm going to take a fine tip Sharpie marker to create a chin, some eyebrows, create the outline for the nose, draw some lines under the eyes as well as some eyelashes. Then I'll take the white acrylic paint to highlight the nose, the mouth, and give the eyes some highlights. And this is how it's looking so far. I decided to make a very tiny gingham bow just by cutting some ribbon in half and gluing that at the top. Then I made just a simple bow with long tails and dovetailed the ends of it to glue right to the handle, but I did decide to take the mini bow at the top off. I just thought it was a little too much. And this is how it turned out. Instead of a wooden spoon, we're going to use one of the wooden turners, and wouldn't you guess it, we're going to give it a coat of the nutmeg acrylic paint on all sides and let it dry. Now I'm using an acrylic paint in the color khaki to apply to the top part of the turner. This will take 2 coats to cover up that nutmeg color. We're going to use another one of those plaid gift bags from Dollar General. Now this was going to be the hat, but it's a little too roughly at the bottom. I didn't like that. So I am going to cut the twine that holds the gift bag together, or the drawstring, cut this fabric in half, and then we're going to tack that down at the top part of the turner with some hot glue. Then we can flip that over and tack it down on the back side. Now this one already had a seam at the bottom, so I didn't have to create a faux seam for this. Have you figured out yet what we're going to turn this into? If you said Santa Claus, then you are right. I'm going to gather the fabric together right above that wooden turner, and using a piece of twine, just tie a very simple bow and leave some short tails. Just like with the snowman, we're going to trim some of that fabric down and make cuts on the end to create like a little pom-pom at the top of Santa's hat. Now we're going to draw some eyebrows, some eyes, a little round nose, and a mouth. We're going to use some black acrylic paint, some cameo pink paint. We're going to fill in the eyes with the black paint and fill in the nose originally with the pink paint, but then I didn't like it, so I went back over it and covered that up. I used a red paint to fill in the mouth. Now I know he's going to look a little weird right now, but just trust the process. Add some red paint to your khaki paint, and then take your paintbrush and kind of bounce it up and down to create a cheek line. And then you can take that same paint, we'll add a little bit more red to it to create an outline for the nose. So the nose is just going to be like a little oval, sideways oval. And I know it's going to look funny, but just keep working with it. Once it dries, we're going to take some of that white paint and create some highlights in the eyes and add a highlight right over the top part of the nose. Now if you make a mistake, just let your paint dry, go back and touch that up with whatever color you need to use to fix any of your mistakes. I'm using a fine tip Sharpie to create some lines under the eyes, some eyelashes, and some eyebrows. Now we're going to work on the beard. Use a dry paintbrush that's kind of fluffy but even on the ends. Gently dab that into your white paint and then dab it onto your paper towel to get most of it off. You're going to pounce this up and down, sort of like stippling right underneath those cheek lines. Do that all the way across and then kind of bring it up the edge a little bit to blend in the cheeks. Then do the same thing around the mouth. You don't want full coverage. You just want to dab that white paint and kind of blend it out around the outline of the mouth, still leaving a little bit of that red showing through. Continue doing that to fill in the beard, and then I decided to kind of bring mine down to a point where the handle is, so I was a little bit more heavy-handed in that area to make it a little bit brighter and leave a little bit of brown off to the side so it kind of looks like it's coming down in a point. I'll fill in a little bit more white at the top to kind of blend that in, and then brush upwards from the bottom so it looks like little hair strands. Just keep working with it until you blend it all in and let that dry. I decided that his eyebrows were a little too dark for his white beard, so I added just a little bit of white paint to the eyebrows to kind of blend that in. Once that dried, I'm going to take some more of that fabric and create a scarf just by tying that right there at the handle, right below the beard, and this is how it turned out. At Hobby Lobby, you can find mini charcuterie boards in a rectangular or round form. You can always catch these when they're on sale. A regular price, they're $2.50. For this project, we're going to use the rectangular one. I am going to remove the hanger. I'm going to be replacing that with something else. We're going to take some Mod Podge and apply a nice even layer over the entire top part of this, and then we'll set that to the side and let it dry. Dollar Tree carries some of the most beautiful Christmas napkins, but you can also find napkins at Hobby Lobby or Dollar General. I loved this one because the Santa looks a little bit vintage. We're going to remove the back layer, so we're only left with the top piece of the napkin. Now, because it is pretty wrinkled, I'm going to very gently go over this with my iron to try to remove some of those wrinkles. Now that the Mod Podge has dried on our charcuterie board, we're going to lay the napkin on top of that and kind of center up our design. Put a piece of parchment paper over top of that. That's going to help the iron to glide easier over the napkin. This will adhere it directly to the board. Make sure you get all of those edges. Once it cools down, take some scissors and trim the majority of the excess napkin off, and using a fine grit sandpaper, go downward in one direction very gently. This will easily remove that excess napkin and give you the most crisp, clean lines. Once you have that completed, take the end of a paintbrush and we're going to poke the napkin right there where the hole for the handle is. Then I like to take a paper towel and gently wipe mine off to make sure there's no debris left over from sanding. We're going to seal that napkin using some Mod Podge. The key to help prevent from getting any type of wrinkles when you're sealing it is to use a dry brush and apply a very thin coat. You don't want to saturate it. You just want to very gently apply one thin coat to the top and let it dry. Depending on what design napkin you use, you may want to paint the sides, but I think mine matches perfectly with this napkin in that natural color. I'm going to take a piece of twine, fold that in half, and feed it through the handle, then pull the ends through and tie a knot to create a new hanger for it. I thought this would look just a little bit better with that vintage design than the leather handle that it came with. To embellish the front of this, I'm going to be using a piece of greenery, and I made a simple bow using some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. I am going to glue that to the top part of the handle, trim my tails down at an angle, and hot glue that right there at the stem of the greenery, and this is how it turned out. For this project, we're going to use one of the round charcuterie boards. I'm going to go ahead and remove that hanger, and just like our previous project, we're going to add a nice even layer of Mod Podge across the top of this, spreading it all the way to the edges. Let that dry. We're also going to be using a beautiful musical sheet scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. We are going to take our charcuterie board, now that the Mod Podge is dry, flip it over, place it where we want our design to be, trace that out with a pencil, and then cut that out. I did cut it slightly larger because I will use some sandpaper to really get those clean lines. We're now going to set this on our heating mat with the Mod Podge side facing up, add our scrapbook paper, a piece of parchment paper, and then iron over this to seal that scrapbook paper to the charcuterie board. Using the end of a paintbrush, I can poke the hole through the scrapbook paper on the handle, and then I'm going to take my finger sander to go around this to get those nice clean lines. This will take a little bit more effort because that scrapbook paper is much thicker than a napkin or tissue paper. I do have this finger sander listed in my Amazon store. The link to that's in my description box if you're interested in it. Now we need to seal our scrapbook paper, so we're going to apply a very thin layer of Mod Podge with a dry brush over top of it, bringing it all the way to the edges, and let that dry. Then I decided to paint the outside edge of the charcuterie board with an acrylic paint in the color Nutmeg. So if you recreate this, you may want to do that before you add your scrapbook paper on there. We're also using one of Dollar Tree's wooden Nativity craft sets. We're only going to be using Joseph, Mary, and Baby Jesus. And I'm going to use my handheld miter shears to cut those bottom pieces off that the craft kit goes together. And then I'll take some sandpaper to go over that to make sure it's nice and smooth and that all of the edges at the bottom are straight. I decided to also trim down the bottom of the manger to make sure all of my pieces will fit together. The handheld miter shears are also listed in my Amazon store if you're interested. I'm going to paint each one of these with that same nutmeg brown paint using just one coat. I'm also going to use a wooden star that came in a pack from Dollar Tree and give it one coat of the nutmeg paint. Our pieces match perfectly with the outside edge of our charcuterie board. Now we can set them on top of that, lay out our design, figure out exactly where we want them to be, and then hot glue each one of these down. Once I have all of that done, I am going to go ahead and add a twine hanger to the top. Rather than using the leather hanger that came on there, I just think it will go better with this design. I'm going to fold that in half, feed it through the hole in the handle, pull the two ends through the loop, tighten that up, and then tie a knot and cut the excess off. I'm going to take two pieces of greenery that I already had on hand to glue at the very top at the handle and made a very simple twine bow to glue right where the two pieces meet. And this is how it turned out. I hope you enjoyed today's projects and found tons of inspiration. If you have a favorite, let me know in the comment section down below because I always love to know which one is your favorite. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button right below the video. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.